Let's move on to coronavirus quickly. So, I mean, it feels like there's just constantly things happening every day at the moment. Um, Again, a bit of a summary. On the 19th of December, so just a few days before Christmas, Boris Johnson U-turned again on this time on um, allowing restrictions to be reduced, as was the initial plan for like I think it was 5 days, was it, over the Christmas period, and allowing up to three
Mhm.
households to gather indoors. Um, that got cancelled. He basically, I think he allowed Christmas Day to have the regulations relaxed, but even then, I think it was only two households, wasn't it, instead of three? I'm not
Yeah,
entirely
two
sure.
households.
Yeah.
Yeah, two households.
Um, Over that, the reason that they decided to make that decision was because a new strain was sort of gripping the nation and
Yeah,
was
in
supposedly
our neck of the woods.
in our neck of
Yeah.
the woods and was far more infectious than the original strain of the virus. So the numbers were increasing massively. Now, as of yesterday, we've entered another lockdown, so it's lockdown 3. This time round, all the schools are closed again. That's the major change. I think other changes like sports games aren't happening anymore. I don't know if
Which,
there are any other big changes, but
yeah, sorry, just on the schools, something else that Boris Johnson said that he wasn't going to do about 4 days ago.
yeah, again, yeah, which he said at the weekend on the
Yeah,
Andrew
on
Marr
Andrew
show.
Marr. Yeah.
Then the following day announced that they were going to close. Um, how are you guys feeling about this? Because personally, over the Christmas period, I was suffering from the virus myself, but I was just in a from the 19th when they made that decision, I was in a permanent state of basically anger at how poorly the government is dealing with this. It has been for months, but that was the nail on the coffin for me, because we had been told we were allowed to relax regulations. It ever since I remember looking in the last week of the last lockdown at the numbers and seeing that the amount of cases were at exactly the same level as the beginning of the lockdown, and not really decreasing very rapidly. Didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that if you then relaxed all the restrictions, it would probably not really go your way. And then on top of that, there was a new strain. So I was just in a basic constant state of anger. So I don't know how you guys felt during that period.
Will?
Well, yeah, obviously, when you hear the Christmas news, you were a bit deflated. I was very excited because 2 or 3 out of the 5 days I was going to see family, which, although I had seen on and off for an unusual period of time, like not never as much as I would have, obviously, but yeah, it was a very deflating feeling. It was sad. It was. I thought most of the public knew it was going to happen. Apparently, most of the people wanted it to be restrained, but I'm not going to just sit here and blame the government in full, as some people do. Not yourself, Brett. I know there's other things that happened, but I understand that the new strain, there's nothing you can do. You have to do it. The promise was based upon there not being this ridiculous strain, which nobody expected across the world. If we're being honest, nobody expected this to escalate hugely as it did, with a massive 70 maximum percent boost in infection rates. And I think he did made, although a U-turn, which although he's going to get criticised for, he made the right decision. Tier 4 wasn't allowed at all, which I was in. I don't know if you were in. I believe you were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's just yeah, it's obviously a feeling that I wasn't as supportive of the November lockdown. I didn't believe it was necessary for everywhere in the country. I believe a tier 4 situation should have been brought in then if it was that big a deal. Wherever it was growing, tier 4 should have been implemented. Well, in hindsight, obviously. But this lockdown, I have to support. I've read multiple things. I'm not on the Julia Hartley Brewer side anymore. I'm not on the Piers Morgan side anymore, trust me. But you just know it has to happen. You just know there's no way you can just let this rip. We've seen what's happening in the hospitals. We've seen the beds filling up. We've seen what's happening.
Yeah,
This has to be done. They've done the right thing.
for sure. Sorry, just
You can't not do it.
I was just
Yeah,
going to
sorry,
say
carry
that I meant to say at the beginning that as of today, they've recorded the highest deaths and cases since April. I think today we surpassed 62,000 cases and just over 1,000 deaths again.
It's insane. Yeah, it's insane.
But yeah, anyway, Jack, what are your feelings?
Yeah, a few things.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Will, if you're not finished. Go ahead.
No, it's just obviously we have to say with COVID, but you just see the deaths, you just see the hospital beds piling up, you just see the people protesting outside. You just think, seriously, are you really this stupid? It's not a pandemic, it's an actual pandemic, which people may have exaggerated in some countries, which people may have undermined in some countries. This is all these restrictions are political. Otherwise, everybody would be doing the exact same thing at the exact same point. I believe that the United Kingdom has definitely become extremely disunited throughout this in the political sense. And I just think some of it has been appalling in the sense that we're not following pathways. Although we're different stages, we're not following the same sort of guidance. Isn't 3 tiers here, 5 tiers here, 8 tiers here, whatever. It's just ridiculous. So yeah, the anger for me comes from the disunity of our country and our political parties instead of the U-turns in some respects.
Yeah, I think, Brett, I don't know if this is the case, like just a few things of what you said. Well, I'll speak for myself. I would blame the government for probably 90% of the mishandling of this. I think that you have outliers, people who aren't going to follow the rules, people that aren't going to wear masks, people that are going to have gatherings. Those people are always going to exist. Whatever rule you make, there are going to be people that break them. So you can't govern, you can't set rules and legislations based on what those people are going to do. You just have to mitigate against that. What you have to do, the reason that we elect politicians is to make difficult decisions in difficult times. And what this government has systematically failed to do is make difficult decisions at difficult times. We've been saying it on this podcast for probably about 6 months now, that action needs to be taken, action needs to be taken, action needs to be taken. The science needs to be followed in the proper manner, and it hasn't been. The tiered system didn't work. Regionalised lockdowns don't work. The World Health Organization came out and said lockdowns don't work as your primary form of virus prevention and control. Listen to the scientists. You have to put in different steps to be able to mitigate against the virus. We are killing certain sectors of business by not taking proper action, and that's why now I think we need to have a full New Zealand style lockdown for a month and a half to finally get the virus under control properly throughout the country. Because if we don't, it is going to remain until we roll out the vaccine. Well, it will remain until we roll out the vaccine anyway, but we have to try and mitigate it more than we are doing at the moment to be able to roll out the vaccine more effectively. Because if we don't, it's going to take longer to roll the vaccine out, businesses are going to suffer more, it's going to cost the country more money, and it's going to take us longer to get back to living our lives in the way that we want to live them. It is getting completely ridiculous now, and it is because of the indecision. That is the problem. The buck stops for me at the leaders. That's where the buck stops, and there's only so long that you can say, oh yeah, but they're trying their best and it's a really difficult situation. I get that, but that's why they're there. And if they're not doing a good enough job, they have to be held to account.
This is kind of where my anger came from, because we look to our leaders to deal with crises as they come up, and it's the fact that up until the very last moment, every time these U-turns happen, the government and the Prime Minister and the ministers are all defending the actions that they're taking at that time until the very moment that they decide they're going to make a complete 360 and change their advice. And if you are London over the last month has been in 4 different types of tiers or lockdowns. If these places keep changing in terms of regulations and what the advice is, people will not know what they're supposed to be obeying, and they won't have trust in what's being advised. Because how can it constantly change from one week to the next?
Yep. And it's the same thing with prominent figures breaking the rules, whether it's Dominic Cummings or it's Kay Burley or it's Piers Morgan. I don't give a toss who it is. I don't care what their political leanings are. when you see prominent figures, whether they be from the government or from popular culture, breaking the
media.
rules, the media, people go, well, if they're not going to follow the rules and they're not going to have the repercussions, why the hell should I? You know, and it started with Dominic Cummings, it started with Stanley Johnson, and it falls on these prominent figures now that are doing it. At this point, after, you know, virtue signaling, if you will, about how important it is to follow the rules, and all these people that are breaking the rules are scumbags that are breaking the rules themselves. You cannot expect other people to follow the rules. So, as I say, you need to lead by example, and that's what we need. Some decisiveness. We need some action. We need some leadership. Otherwise, what are they for? What are the leaders for? What are politicians for if it isn't to do that?
I was just, another thing that I feel like I read things every day that are, you know, just shocking. Like I shared something on the Demographica Twitter page the other day about how the new strain is affecting younger people more than it seemed like the first one was. There are now wards full of children who are suffering from the virus, and like 20 to 30-year-olds who are normally completely healthy and don't have any underlying health conditions, but are on intensive care units. What really shocked me, and I'm lucky to not be in a position where I know anybody who is suffering from cancer at the moment, or who needs treatment, but when I saw a headline the other day saying that cancer patients may have to wait for life-saving treatment because hospitals can no longer give them the treatment that they need, there's just I felt my fires burning inside me, basically.
Yeah.
Like I could not, I cannot comprehend how badly families in situations where their family members have just received news or recently received news where their mum or dad or sister or brother or grandfather or grandmother is suffering from cancer and can't get the treatment that they need because of the failings of this government.
Yeah, and like you said, Will, nobody, I don't think anybody wants another lockdown per se. I think we recognise that it is necessary, but the ineptitude is causing so many other knock-on issues that are going to impact people's lives. I mean, we haven't even touched on mental health, the mental health repercussions of this. You know, there are huge knock-on effects of not dealing with this properly. And if they would have said straight away, we're going to take action, we're going to shut the country down, we're going to flush it out. Scientists know that viruses mutate. You know, it happens with the flu every year, which is why they have to change, why you have to get regular flu jabs. You know, it's common that this happens. If they took action, we wouldn't be in this position now, where we were still having to make these difficult decisions. And like you say, Brett, it's gross that people, that families are in that position.
Yeah. But Will, I don't know if you've got any more thoughts on the.
Yeah, it's just it is very saddening to see the fact that, especially in the March lockdown, that NHS hospitals weren't just unable to cope with cancer patients; they were basically shut off from taking these sorts of patients, which was gross misconduct by Public Health England. I don't know how much the government had an actual say in shutting these hospitals down in complete around the country. Excuse me, but it is really difficult hearing about this. I really hope that, as the lockdown skeptics say, the figures are boosted, the figures of this, the figures of that. I really hope that the lockdown, not lovers, but the lockdown people who feel that lockdown, we should have locked down in totality. I really hope that their mental health figures are boosted and that this hasn't affected people as bad as it says. I really hope, because it's really quite sad. It's very upsetting to see the amounts of people that they are saying are affected by this. I just really hope that that isn't the case, that mental health is better than people think, that cancer patients, although there will be some that slip through the cracks, of course, it's inevitable when you've shut off their surgery. I just really hope that the repercussions of these lockdowns from the non-COVID side are less than people say they will be, because although I'm not saying that they're wrong. I'm just saying that you just wish that you just really hope that not as many people as they say they are going to be affected by this, because that's a great thing. And if they're not, if it's half as many even, that's a fantastic result. But
There's no
there's going to
sign of
need to
that
be
being the case right now, though, which I think
yeah.
is
It's just
important to.
we won't know absolutely. You know that call centres have been flooded with calls. They say that 200% more people are calling this hotline than last year, but you just hope that they aren't calling it about the things that the headlines say. You just hope that they're just saying, "Oh, you're there." Like, "Oh, okay." No, we're hoping it's not long term and it's just through lockdown. But you just want things to be better on the other side, instead of going from one pandemic to another, or one pandemic to an epidemic in our own country. You just want normality. You say you want to go back to normal. There isn't going to be a normal, because people are going to be there's going to be huge pressure on the NHS to do other things. There's going to be huge pressure to catch up with dental appointments, eye appointments, medical appointments, other surgeries, etc. So there is going to be a new normal, but you just hope that it isn't as much of a epidemic as they're saying, which would be a really good and nice thing to hear, that half as many people as they said there were are actually going into mental health hospitals or going in to get treatment for mental health. That would be a lovely headline, although it's sad that more people are. It'd just be really nice.
I mean, hypothetically, it would be, but I think we've seen countless articles saying that it's not the case and that people are suffering.